Hello, buenos dias. Have you ever wondered why you can't achieve more than one fitness goal? Maybe you're training for multiple different things at the moment. Maybe you're trying to get better at running. Maybe you're trying to build more muscle. Maybe you're trying to get stronger. But you just feel like you're not really making any progress in any of these ventures. Well, today I'm going to be breaking down exactly why you probably shouldn't train for multiple goals all at once. Now, let me be clear, because when we're talking about achieving multiple goals, we're talking about this in the short term. In the long term, if we're thinking about hybrid fitness, we're thinking about somebody who's strong, who's athletic, who can run, who is muscular, who has that aesthetic look, but is also functional as well. These are all things that you can achieve as the end goal. They're not the sort of thing that you want to have all in one program. And we're going to get into, at the end, how you can actually fix your training plan so that you can achieve all of these things in the right way. So first of all, why can't you achieve multiple fitness goals at once? Why can't you just have a plan that gets you strong, gets you big, gets you lean, gets you fast? Mainly it's because of the law of specificity. Training is specific. There are different structural and physiological adaptations that you're trying to bring about with different goals. And some of these goals are going to have contradicting adaptations. Just think of a sumo wrestler who is also trying to be an ultramarathon runner. There's two very distinct structural and physiological adaptations that these two people need, these two athletes, that are going to completely contradict one another. And so if they were to try and train for both, they'd probably be just somewhat mediocre at both of these things rather than being really good at one of them. Again, you only have to look at any professional athlete to see that they're only training for their sport. They're not going out on the weekend, a professional football player, and playing rugby. They're specifically playing for the sport that they need to be good at. And the next thing kind of leads on from this, which is this idea of a limited adaptation energy. Adaptation energy is just a concept, and you can think of it as the amount of some form of adaptation, like say muscle growth or say endurance training or something like that, that you can accrued throughout the course of a day or a week or whatever. Now, everybody only has a certain limit of adaptation energy that they can use within a given training session. And if you're trying to improve your cardio as well as build more muscle, as well as get stronger, then you're basically having to split that adaptation energy that you would only be able to use for that day into smaller bouts for each of those different attributes. Now, what this leads you with is a more diluted stimulus. So instead of saying all of your adaptation energy going into just muscle growth, now you're having to spread it sort of at muscle growth and a little bit at endurance and a little bit at strength. Whereas if you just put it all in muscle growth, then you get a great muscle growth stimulus. But because we've done it with all of them, we've got a diluted stimulus for everything. Now, there's also a time issue here as well, because most of you, I'm sure, have full-time jobs, have full-time careers. You probably have, I don't know, family or friends or a life or something, which means that you're not going to be spending 10 plus hours a week at the gym. And let's say for most of you probably have, say, 3 days spare where you go and work out at the gym. If you're trying to fit all of these different things into a workout plan for just a 3-day split that might be only, say, an hour each gym session, then you've got 3 hours a week that you're trying to cram all of this stimulus into. It's just going to almost not hit the threshold for any of them in terms of actually stimulating that adaptation. Instead, you'd be better off using that 3 hours to actually stimulate one of these three things, being muscle growth, strength, or performance-based endurance, something like that, just choosing one and then pushing for improvements on just that. And for a lot of you, that's probably the position that you're in. You might be training 3 days a week or 4 days a week, going to the gym, spending an hour there, and then you're doing all of these different things. So it feels like you're doing a lot. You're accruing a lot of fatigue on your body because you're working out, but the stimulation for these different adaptations isn't hitting the threshold for any of them to actually adapt. And therefore you just end up feeling the same. You don't really feel much fitter, you don't feel much bigger, and you don't feel like you're getting any stronger. Or if you do, you just feel like you're doing it very, very slowly. Now, of course, like anything in fitness, this is all contextual. You may have loads of time that you can dedicate, and therefore you could choose multiple different goals. Maybe not loads, but you might have one or two that have shared similarities between them, like muscle growth and strength. Or it may be that you're completely new to fitness and you're just getting in, and any adaptation is going to occur just because this is so brand new to you, because you've never lifted a weight or you've never gone for a run in your life. And therefore you're going to feel all of this happen all at once. That's the sort of person that I would say, actually, no, that's a good idea to train for multiple things. But if you've been doing this for, say, a year or two consistently, and you just feel like your progress is slowing down, at this point, this is when I would change to having your sights set on just one goal. Now, that's not forever, because like I said at the beginning, we can train to be good at everything, but what we want to do is have a specialized approach in the short term to be good at everything in the long term, rather than having this kind of jack of all trades approach that just leaves you at a jack of all trades for ever. So how to fix it? How do we fix it? All you have to do is train for a purpose. So you're just going to pick one, potentially two, maybe like one with a subcategory of some kind of fitness goal that you want to achieve. It may be for a lot of you, if you just want this kind of all-round fitness, this hybrid athlete look, that you start off by focusing on something like muscle growth. So you would run essentially more like a bodybuilding workout plan. You're going to be looking at higher overall volumes in terms of sets per muscle group per week. You're going to be looking at pushing pretty close to failure on almost every set. You're probably going to be favoring machines over other exercises that may accrue more fatigue. And you're probably going to be using a fair few isolation or accessory exercises to bring up weaker areas. And that would be your first cycle. That would be your first training phase. It would be with the goal of muscle growth. You could call this your muscle growth training phase. That sounds pretty cool. And like I said at the beginning, this doesn't have to be forever. This could be a training phase that literally lasts like 8 to 12 weeks, but you are pushing specifically for the outcome of increasing your muscle mass. Then what you could do is you could change your sights and you could say, okay, actually, I just want to be strong now. I've got all of this new muscle tissue. We've got all this new contractile tissue. It's going to help out. Of course it's going to help out. We've almost set ourselves up perfectly. We've sequenced this logically so that then we could go into a strength phase. And you could do the same thing. Again, this could be like a 10 to 14 week cycle where you say, right now the goal is strength, where you're probably going to be using more moderate volumes. Maybe at the beginning you start off a little bit higher with lower intensities. Strength, you don't have to be pushing anywhere near close to failure as long as you're using heavier loads, higher percentages of your 1 rep max. And you probably want to be practicing the lift multiple times a week because it's going to be skill specific, but at different intensities. Again, just to mitigate fatigue. And now again, we're training for a specific purpose in mind. We're trying to get stronger at the end of this block. All of our stimulus is for this one thing. And then on the back end of that, if you said, right, actually, I want to be better at running, then you may go and do some sort of performance-based training phase. Again, this might be 8 to 14 weeks long, and you could break it down into some smaller mesocycles, and you could say something like, right, for the first 4 weeks, I'm going to build up an aerobic base, and I'm going to do plenty of low intensity, high volume work. And then I'm going to, in terms of running, in terms of the cardiovascular side of work, and then I'm going to, in the next sort of 4 week mesocycle block, I'm going to focus more on anaerobic conditioning. I'm going to maybe do some threshold training. So these are more sprint-based activities or without the presence of oxygen. And you could do that. That could be almost a year's worth of training there, where you start off with this hypertrophy, this muscle growth specific block at the beginning, then you transition into strength, then into some sort of like cardiovascular or performance-based, and then you could even just repeat, rinse and repeat. But the point I just want to hammer home is that you use these specific training phases to get you the outcome that you want in the short term that's going to be one of the specific adaptations that gets you to that long-term goal. If you want to be big, strong, and fast, then don't train to be big, strong, and fast. Train to be big, then train to be strong, and then train to be fast, because it's far easier to maintain the adaptations once you've achieved them with a quarter to a third to as low as a quarter of the volume that you'd need in order to actually bring about that adaptation in the first place. So you can train for something else whilst you maintain something that you've already achieved, and you're just going to see that progress come through so much quicker. So there we go, guys. Training phases, they are your best friend. Absolutely use them. As usual, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was useful. If you did find it useful, please feel free, drop me a like. I'd really appreciate it. And if you are new around here and you want to see more content on how to build your best body, then please feel free, drop me a comment below. If you have anything you want me to cover, drop it below. I will have a look. I will definitely consider it. And subscribe if you're new around here and you enjoyed. Then please subscribe. It really helps me out. Anyway, that's it, guys. I'll catch you in the next one.